So here's what I definitely can say, right? I love the fact that before any operation, you have to learn the skills that you need for the operation. So you find yourself learning things that you never would have thought in a million years you had to learn. Like I had to learn how to free dive. Who gets to learn how to free dive, right? And I had to learn how to swim with a scuba tank at night with no lights. Who gets to learn how to do that stuff, right? Like it's one thing to learn how to scuba dive. It's something different to learn how to scuba dive at night with lights. But then to learn how to scuba dive at night with no lights, there's these cool things that you have to learn for any operation that you're going on. Some people have to learn how to, drive a car where the steering wheel's on the opposite side. Some people have to learn how to make a certain kind of cheese. Some people have to learn how to taste wine. Like you have all these things you have to learn. Some people have to go to school for a whole new language just for the operation. So we often joke at the agency that the people who have the most fun at CIA, the people who have the most fun in intelligence are people who are collectors of experiences. Because just like I told you, I learned multiple languages. I don't remember them. So it's not the mastery of the language that makes me feel satisfied. It was the opportunity to learn it at all.
Has there ever been a time you've been on an operation where you've actually been fearful for your life?
Absolutely. I've been fearful for my life in at least 2 operations, one of which is the primary subject of the book, my memoir that I'm getting cleared through CIA.
We can't talk about that.
We can't talk about it yet, but once it's cleared, I'll be able to talk about it with the world. But then there was another operation I was on that was a counterterrorism operation, and we actually had like a terrorist bomb go off.
Can you say which country?
No.
Okay.
But what I will say is like when a bomb goes off,
shit gets real.
Holy shit, stuff gets real. Like stupid example, right? For anybody who has followed me or who knows me, they understand that I almost always wear laced shoes. It's one of my, people ask me like, hey, Andy, what's your everyday carry? In the United States, we love everyday carry. And we always want to know like, oh, what model of gun and where do you conceal it? I'm like, my fucking everyday carry is laced shoes because I was trained.
Taking the lace off and kill somebody with it?
Close. I was trained to always have laced shoes on, always. But I was a fucking 28-year-old kid. And of course I knew better than what all the training was. Well, then I'm in a country and I'm in flip-flops and a bomb goes off. You know what happens when the bomb goes off, cement flakes go everywhere, glass flakes go everywhere, your body parts go everywhere.
And this was obviously, you guys were aware that this might have been happening, or you were obviously there to some degree?
We suspected that there was a potential terrorist plot.
Shit.
That's completely different than suspecting that the attack was about to go on. Right?
And you were close enough to it too.
And I was close enough to it to hear the bomb, feel the shake, and then everything exploded, right? And you've got glass shards, body parts, cement shards, asphalt shards, people panicking, everyone's running, your flip-flops or your thongs or whatever you want to call them, that shit does not protect your feet, right? And I was just evacuating. I wasn't like a hero or anything like that. I was just getting away from the blast zone, and it tore the hell out of my feet. And I learned without a doubt on that day, this is why they told us to wear laced shoes, because you never know when this shit's going to, and my feet weren't the only feet that got tore up. Some people lost their feet, right? Some people got trampled to death because they stopped to try to care for their feet, and then the crowd rolled them over. Yeah. Like, that's the reality of it. The world is a dark place, and it's sometimes your survival really boils down to something as stupid and simple as that.
Has there ever been a time where you've been concerned or worried about getting out of a country, or nearly being caught or something?
So it's funny because that is actually the second harrowing experience, and that is the subject of my memoir. That's the one
we can't talk about. That's the cliffhanger. That's why we're all going to get your book when it comes out.
I'll have to come back and tell you about it when it goes live.
Oh, I love it, man. I'm very fascinated because you've obviously been to God knows how many countries. You've seen things. You've become aware of things. You probably know secrets then most people in the world will never get to know. And I'm curious to know your perspective of just genuinely where you think the world's at right now and where it's going the next decade. It seems like there's a war is about to break out. There's someone going to shoot a nuclear bomb. There's crypto this. There's so many strange things happening in the world right now. And I'm just fascinated to know your perspective of what you think is happening right now, and where do you think the world's going the next 10 years?
So I'm going to start with the good news because it's important that people understand this, right? The world is always changing. It was changing when we were kids. It was changing before our parents even thought about getting married. It's going to change for our grandkids and our great-grandkids. So the world's always changing. It's always dynamic. The idea that we're going to reach some sort of like stagnation and always be the same and the change is going to stop is unrealistic because human beings evolve, technology evolves, society evolves, culture evolves, everything changes. So the good news is you don't have to be afraid of change. It's natural. We're not any more or less dangerous than we were 15 years ago. The danger is just different. It's just the way it is. Now, the bad news is, to answer your question, where's the world going in the next 10 years? We are entering into a phase where one of the big questions that's being challenged is whether democracy is really the best way to govern. That wasn't a question 15 years ago. That wasn't a question 30 years ago. 40 years ago, it was almost a certainty that democracy is the best form of governance in the world. Now, what we're actually seeing is autocrats and strong-arm governments and power plays get things done more efficiently, make allies faster, and grow economies faster, right? Look at Russia. Russia broke every international rule to invade Ukraine, and their economy is stronger than it's ever been. China has elected the same president like 3 times over now, and the dude's like got no plans of not being the ruler of the prime minister, the chair of the CCP anytime soon, right? And it just goes on. Netanyahu is the prime minister of Israel.
Okay.
And here's a guy who has just as nasty of a track record politically as Donald Trump, right? Corruption and abuse and whatever else. And he's unpopular among his own people. And he's the prime minister of a true democracy. Israel is a true democracy.
Can you explain democracy? I'm so ignorant to this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
What does it mean?
Well, Australia's democracy too.
What does it mean?
So democracy means that the process of electing your leaders is pushed to the people in some way, shape, or form. Could be representative. It could be a true democracy. There's a different way of the people themselves choosing who leads them, right? And the idea that the population gets to have a contribution to where their country goes.
And you're saying it's more so leaning towards like a dictatorship.
Well, what we're having now is we're looking at a world where democracy had previously been assumed to be the most efficient, effective, economically powerful way of building a country. And now what we're seeing is that the rising economies of the world are actually not democracies. So it's challenging the assumption, the bias that we've had for the last 50 years about democracy. That's tough. That's tough because, remember we were talking about the security dilemma, right? I buy a guard dog that's 60 pounds, you buy a guard dog that's 80 pounds. Well, what happens when the biggest threat in the world to America is a autocracy and we're a democracy? Now all of a sudden there's this pressure on the United States to become an autocracy. And here's what's really fucked up. I don't know how much you follow politics. In the United States, we are a two-party system, right? There's the Republican Party and then there's the Democrat Party. There's the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party. That's what we are.
Yep.
What both parties have, like our country is based on a two-party system, meaning both parties have to be present and that there's value in having two parties that disagree and compromise and collaborate and work together. That's what our country is based on. But now on both sides of the fence, you know what each party actually wants? To be the only party in power. Well, as soon as you have a one-party system, you have the foundation for an autocracy. You have the Chinese Communist Party, a one-party system that can elect one leader essentially over and over again forever. So even in the United States, we're already debating which party is going to be in control. France just dissolved their parliament for a very similar reason. Like the French parliament, that's a democracy.
Yeah.
The president dissolved the parliament.
Meaning
he made an order that said everybody who's in the parliament is no longer in the parliament and the entire population of France has to re-vote their parliament back into power.
Why did he do that?
It's 2024, dude. That's fucking crazy. The whole country just hit reset on every governing official. That's nuts.
Why do you think so?
He did it because he saw a change in election behavior that he believed was being influenced by extreme political meddling.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't believe that the French people wanted that level of meddling. He believed that the French people, if they had a chance to set the whole thing straight, to redo the whole thing, that they would actually vote their conscience instead of voting based off of what influenced them in the moment, right? Because it's awkward in Europe. In Europe, you vote for the leaders of your country, but then the EU also has a vote for the leaders of the EU, and sometimes the EU leaders aren't the same as the country leaders. So it's just an example of what I'm saying is the problem for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, it was a strong arm move for the French president to dissolve parliament. That was not something that the people asked for. It was not something that the people wanted. It was something the president decided to do on his own. That's strong arm leadership. That's an autocratic move. But he's doing it because he believes it's in the best interest of democracy.
Yeah. Do you think, two-part question, one, do you think Trump will get back in? And two, if he does, what do you think? Do you think he's more leaning towards that?
There's two high probability opportunities in the United States. Biden will be reelected or Trump will be elected. Those are high probability opportunities. So I advise all of my clients, all of my ultra high net worth clients, all of my corporate clients, all of my political clients, right? You need to be prepared for the two most likely outcomes, Trump or Biden. You must be prepared.
Both outcomes were a bit interesting, eh?
Both outcomes are bad news. Both outcomes essentially guarantee 4 more years of pain. Honestly, both outcomes guarantee 4 more years of pain, and then 4 years after that are completely unpredictable. Because in both cases, they can't really run again, right? So what the fuck comes after the next 4 years? We're all so focused on November, we're not even thinking about what happens 4 years after November.
You mentioned Israel and Palestine. That's one thing I did want to, because that's one thing I'm also curious on, because I'm so not aware of this. I guess also another conspiracy comes into it, people, all these things. What do you think, like what the fuck's happening with those two countries?
Well, Palestine is not a country, and that's part of the problem, right? Israel is a country. Palestine is a people without a country. They have been given land inside Israel, but they have not been recognized as an independent country. They have actually been recognized by multiple countries in the UN as being a sovereign nation, a sovereign state, but they are technically without land. They're technically a country without borders, right? And that's a big part of the challenge. It's a big part of the problem. So I don't think there's any conspiracy there. I think that it's actually very simple, and people just don't want to accept the simplicity of it. Palestine is a oppressed group. Israel is a wealthy country run by a government that's a democracy. It just so happens that the government and the democracy of Israel is also a theocracy that is Jewish. And it just so happens that Palestine is a group of people that is majoritively Muslim. It's still like it's a group that's oppressed, and it's a nationalized democracy, right? It's just that there's no separation of church and state in Israel. Then you've got the actual villain in the whole thing. Israel's not the villain. Palestine is not the villain. Those are just the two peoples who have been pitted against each other by the true villain, who's Iran. Because Iran has funded an extremist group inside of Palestine to attack sovereign Israeli soil, which then set Israel into a course of action to try to fight that fundamentalist group, which is comprised of Palestinians. Not all Palestinians, just some Palestinians. So essentially Israel, who's totally safe and outside of the whole, Iran, who's totally safe and outside of the whole thing, has instigated this fire that has got the whole world on fire, right? And no one is remembering, nobody's focusing on the fact that it's all been instigated. The arsonist is Iran. And what we're focusing on instead is the actual fire that's still burning between Israel and Palestine.
Do you think a nuclear war is possible?
A nuclear war is always possible. As long as nuclear weapons exist, nuclear war is possible.
Do you think it will happen?
But that doesn't mean it's probable. Exactly right. Nuclear war becomes less and less probable every day because we understand the damage and the mutually assured destruction that comes from nuclear war. Now, when I say nuclear war, what I mean is what's known as interstate nuclear war, meaning a sovereign nation throws nuclear weapons at another sovereign nation. The big problem with our world right now is that there's nuclear capabilities that can be given to non-state actors. So what happens if a fundamentalist or terrorist group steals a nuclear warhead and sets off a nuclear warhead inside of a sovereign country? Now, who's accountable for the explosion, right? Like, my big fear in Ukraine is that some Belarusian group will get their hands on a Soviet warhead and then explode that warhead in Kiev. That's my big concern, because if a suitcase nuke goes off in Kiev that can be traced to coming from Belarus, what do we do?
Yeah.
Does the United States then bomb Belarus with nuclear weapons? Does the United States send a nuclear weapon into Russia? Does Russia attack Belarus with nuclear weapons? What does NATO do? It gets to be a huge mess. Nobody's talking about the tactical relevance and probability of a non-state or ill-defined actor actually using a nuclear weapon.
It's wild. Andrew, this has been so cool. Where can everybody check out everything you do? You've got online courses. You take people for a day, teach them how to be a spy, and they run around the city. You do such cool stuff. So where can everybody find everything that you guys do and find you on social media?
Absolutely. The best place to find me is on my homepage, everydayspy.com. If you want to find me on social media, I'm at everydayspy. And if you're into the podcast world on YouTube, Spotify, or iTunes, you'll find my podcast, the Everyday Spy Podcast, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
I love it. Mate, I've got one final question I ask everybody before we wrap it up. So if you were to go back to your 18-year-old self and give him 30 seconds of advice, what would it be?
Women are not the answer you're looking for. You're looking for a challenge. You're looking for an opportunity. You're looking for growth. And right now you just think that all of those things happen in a female. There's so many better places to be looking for growth and opportunity and challenge that will yield far better results and yield a far better female partner for the rest of your life.